Before we begin, take a second. If you enjoy slow-burn sci-fi, quiet warriors, and moments where humanity reminds the universe why it survives, tap like, subscribe for more HFY stories, and tell me in the comments what you think this shrine is really hiding. Now let's step inside. The shrine floated in the dark like a held breath. No thrusters burned nearby. No patrol beacons blinked. Even hyperspace lanes curved subtly away from it, as if the galaxy itself preferred not to brush against its silence. The structure was ancient, older than most written star charts, its stone metal surface etched with symbols no living species fully claimed. Empires rose and fell within sensor range of the shrine, yet none had dared land troops on its steps. Not because it was guarded, but because every civilization eventually learned that the ones who touched it first did not remain long enough to brag. That reputation was why the raiders came anyway. Their assault craft cut in hard, tearing open space with aggressive engines and louder confidence. The lead ship bore the sigil of the Carrax clans, a coalition known for stripping planets bare and selling the bones. They had looted holy worlds before. Faith, after all, had never fired back. The commander, Vesk Tal, watched the shrine swell on the forward display and let his mandibles part in amusement. No defensive grid. No energy signature worth mentioning. Just an old monument squatting on valuable coordinates. Confirm breach teams, he ordered. 5 squads answered. Heavily armed. Shielded. Prepared for traps that history suggested would never come. Inside the shrine, the custodians waited. They were not warriors. They were record keepers, historians bred over generations to maintain the shrine's interior and preserve the stories carved into its walls. Their species had outlived 3 empires by knowing when not to fight. When alarms chimed softly through the halls, the eldest among them closed his eyes and felt a familiar weight settle into his chest. The taboo had been broken. Again. They have come for the archive, one of the younger custodians said, voice unsteady. Yes, the elder replied. And they will learn why it was sealed. The first explosions echoed through the outer antechambers as raiders burned through ceremonial doors that had never been meant to stop anything more violent than time. Dust lifted in slow spirals. Light strips flickered, then dimmed. The shrine did not resist. It never did. That was always the mistake. Vesk Tal led the advance himself, boots striking ancient stone with deliberate disrespect. His scanners mapped wide halls and branching corridors, all empty, all quiet. No defenders. No turrets. He laughed, the sound harsh in his helmet. Transmit this, he told his crew. Let the clan see how easily myths fall. The feed went live. Raiders fanned out, weapons raised, recording everything. They joked about selling fragments of the shrine as trophies. Someone carved their name into a pillar older than their species. Then Squad 3 stopped responding. At first, Vesk assumed interference. The shrine was saturated with strange materials. But when Squad 4 reported finding only drifting equipment where Squad 3 should have been, unease crept into his tone. No scorch marks. No blood. Just absence, as if the warriors had stepped out of reality itself. Regroup, he snapped. All units, tighten formation. Deeper within the shrine, a man stood alone. He had arrived days earlier, his ship hidden beyond normal sensor ranges, its signature masked by techniques Earth never shared. He wore no insignia, no colors that tied him to a nation, only layered fabric and armor engineered to swallow light. His weapon rested against his back, unadorned and brutally simple, its edge honed by hands that understood patience. He listened. Every vibration traveled through the shrine's bones. He felt the raiders before he saw them, felt their arrogance in the way they moved too fast, too loud. His name did not matter here. His rank did not matter. Only the promise he upheld did. Earth had learned long ago that some places did not need conquering. They needed watching. The first raider rounded a corner and never finished the step. The man caught the body, lowered it gently, and moved on. No alarms triggered. No screams followed. Silence remained intact. Vesk Tal's confidence eroded by degrees. His squads reported motion without contact. Shadows where none should fall. A sense of being measured. He ordered heavier weapons deployed, energy blasts scorching walls that had endured millennia without a scratch. The shrine absorbed the violence without comment. At the center hall, the custodians retreated behind sealed partitions, trusting an agreement older than their fear. The elder placed his palm against a glyph that pulsed faintly, signaling that the watcher was present. The raiders reached the hall moments later. Vesk Tal stepped forward, surveying the vast chamber and its towering archive spires. His greed flared anew. Whatever secrets lay here would be worth the cost. He raised his weapon to issue orders. The lights dimmed further. Somewhere behind him, something moved with purpose. The first scream finally came, cut short before it could echo. Vesk spun, weapons firing into darkness that swallowed the shots whole. For the first time in his career, the commander felt it, cold and undeniable. They had not arrived first. And whatever had been waiting here did not intend to leave. The shrine remembered footsteps. Stone that had been shaped before most stars had stable names carried vibration the way water carried ripples. Every careless step the raiders took announced itself, echoing through chambers meant to teach patience. The man felt each one through the soles of his boots, cataloged distance and number without conscious effort, and adjusted his path accordingly. He moved neither quickly nor slowly. Speed was a language of panic. He preferred certainty. He paused beside a pillar inscribed with 1,000 extinct alphabets and closed his eyes for half a breath. 3 heartbeats ahead, 2 behind, 1 elevated on a ledge meant for ceremonial watchers. The raiders were adapting poorly, bunching together as fear eroded doctrine. They had expected resistance to roar. Silence confused them. The man drew his blade. It did not sing. It did not glow. Its edge caught no light, as if illumination itself slid away from it. The weapon was old by Earth's standards, newer than the shrine by orders of magnitude, and it existed for one purpose only. When he moved again, the blade moved with him, a continuation rather than a tool. The ledge raider died first, pulled down into shadow before he could fire. The 2 behind turned in time to see nothing but the absence where their comrade had been. One raised an alarm. The man closed the distance and ended both motions before sound could finish forming. He lowered them gently, mindful of the shrine beneath his feet. Elsewhere, Vesk Tal fought the creeping realization that he had lost control of the operation. His squads were intact by the numbers, but cohesion had evaporated. Orders repeated. Responses came delayed or not at all. Every corridor looked the same now, every turn promising another ambush that never quite happened. His mandibles tightened as he reviewed the feeds. Static bloomed across several channels, blooming in patterns that felt intentional. "This structure is interfering," one officer said. Vesk Tal did not answer. He had begun to suspect the interference was not environmental. The custodians listened as violence brushed close to their refuge and then passed by without breach. The elder knelt, hands folded, breathing slow. He had met the Watcher only once, decades ago, when the pact had been renewed. A human, unadorned, eyes steady as stone. No threat spoken. No promises made beyond presence. It had been enough. In the corridors beyond, the man reached the outer ring of the central hall and stopped. The raiders were there now, clustered under the vast archways, weapons raised in every direction. They fired at movement that was not there, their shots gouging walls and dissolving into ancient alloy that refused to scar. Their fear was loud. It helped him. He stepped into view. Just once. Just long enough. Several raiders saw him, tall and unremarkable, a silhouette where a monster should have been. Their targeting system screamed warnings that did not resolve. Vesk Tal saw him on the feed and felt something unfamiliar twist in his gut. The human did not charge. He did not posture. He simply stood, blade at his side, head slightly inclined as if listening to music only he could hear. "Fire," Vesk ordered. The hall erupted in light. When it faded, the human was gone. The raiders' formation collapsed entirely then. Some advanced. Others fell back. None noticed the man moving above them, using decorative beams and gravity shifts designed for ritual procession. He dropped into their midst and the blade began its work in earnest. Each motion was precise. Each strike final. He did not linger. He did not look back. Vesk Tal abandoned the feed and took command in person. Pride demanded it. Survival insisted. He activated heavier systems, weapons meant for boarding actions against fortified targets. The air thickened with energy discharge. The shrine dimmed further, as if withdrawing its attention. The man felt the shift and adjusted again. This phase would be louder. That was acceptable. Evacuation time was nearly complete. He intercepted Vesk's advance at the threshold of the inner sanctum. The commander halted, staring at him across a scatter of fallen troops. Up close, the human looked almost fragile. No obvious enhancements. No visible shielding. Just calm eyes and a blade dark with use. "You're guarding relics," Vesk said, forcing disdain into his voice. "Stand aside." The man tilted his head. "No." The word landed heavier than any threat. Vesk snarled and lunged, weapons blazing. The duel was brief and brutal, a clash between fury and discipline. The man took a glancing hit that burned through his shoulder guard, heat biting flesh. He ignored it, stepped inside Vesk's guard, and disarmed him with a twist that shattered armor and bone alike. The blade stopped a breath from the commander's throat. "Leave," the man said. "Take whoever still lives." For a moment, Vesk considered defiance. Then he saw it in the human's eyes. Not hatred. Not pleasure. Responsibility. The kind that did not waver. The man stepped back and vanished once more, melting into the shrine's folds as alarms finally began to signal retreat. Vesk Tal staggered away, humiliation and relief warring in his chest. Deep within the shrine, the elder felt the tension ease. He exhaled, centuries of fear leaving his lungs in one slow release. The Watcher was still here. The promise held. The man paused beside a sealed door, blood seeping warm beneath his armor, and allowed himself one steadying breath. The worst was not over. The raiders had fled, but they would talk. Others would come. He turned back toward the darkness, blade ready, and continued his watch. The retreat should have ended it. That was the lie Vesk Tal clung to as his surviving ships pulled away from the shrine's perimeter, engines flaring too hot, too fast. He watched the structure recede on the main display, still intact, still indifferent, and told himself that losses were acceptable. That the clans would regroup, return with better preparation, heavier firepower, less superstition. Then the signal arrived. It was not a transmission in the conventional sense. No carrier wave, no decipherable protocol. It appeared simultaneously across every remaining ship's internal systems. A simple cascading alert that overrode security permissions with quiet authority. The message was short. Coordinates. A countdown. Vesk's blood cooled. Back inside the shrine, the man moved with renewed urgency. He had hoped to avoid this phase, hoped that fear would carry the raiders far enough away to preserve the wider balance. Hope, however, was a luxury Earth had trained out of its sentinels long ago. He reached a junction where the shrine's oldest mechanisms slept behind seamless walls and pressed his palm against the stone. It warmed beneath his touch, recognizing a pattern never taught to the custodians. The archive stirred. Deep chambers awakened, not with light or sound, but with alignment. Records long dormant began to compile, cross-referencing threat markers and probability curves measured in centuries. This shrine did not punish. It remembered, and remembrance had consequences. The custodians felt it too. The elder straightened, eyes widening as glyphs along the inner walls shifted, reordering themselves into sequences none of his kind had ever seen active. "He has invoked the deeper record," one whispered. "Yes," the elder said softly. "Then the danger was greater than we knew." The man withdrew his hand and exhaled slowly. Pain throbbed through his injured shoulder, sharp but manageable. He sealed the wound with practiced efficiency and resumed his position near the central axis. If the raiders chose defiance, the shrine would answer in a language the galaxy could not ignore. Vesk Tal barked orders, demanding analysis, countermeasures, anything. His engineers worked in frantic silence as the countdown continued to tick across every screen. When it reached 0, nothing exploded. No weapons fired. For a breath, relief surged. Then hyperspace rippled. Not with ships but with data. The shrine broadcast its archive outward, threading through known relay networks, embedding itself into neutral systems, merchant channels, even forgotten buoys adrift between stars. It did not accuse. It documented. Footage. Timelines. Names. The Carrick's clan's history unfolded in cold, meticulous detail, every violation, every broken accord, every world stripped beyond recovery. Across the galaxy, systems paused as the record took hold. Vesk watched his clan's reputation collapse in real time. Contracts voided. Bounties posted. Borders sealed. Allies distanced themselves with sudden moral clarity. He roared in rage, but there was no one left to hear him. The shrine had not killed them. It had made them visible. Inside the ancient halls, the man allowed himself a moment of stillness. This too was part of the watch. Violence was only one tool. Truth, properly placed, could be sharper. Yet his instincts did not settle. He felt it before alarms sounded, a shift in intent that scraped against his awareness. One of the retreating ships had not turned away. It had gone dark, slipping into a stealth trajectory that arced back toward the shrine's underside. A last gamble, desperate and dangerous. The man moved. He intercepted the incursion at a maintenance aperture rarely used even by the custodians. The raiders who emerged were fewer now, their armor scorched, eyes bright with the brittle edge of fanatic resolve. At their center, they carried a device humming with unstable energy, stolen from a battlefield that should have buried it. Vesktal's voice crackled through an open channel. "If we fall," he hissed, "we take your monument with us." The man stepped forward, placing himself squarely between the device and the shrine's core. His posture was relaxed, almost weary. "You won't," he said. They charged. The fight was close, brutal, stripped of elegance. The man's blade moved less now, conserving strength, relying on positioning and timing honed over decades of similar stance. He took blows meant to overwhelm, redirected momentum meant to crush, and dismantled the team piece by piece. One raider detonated early, the blast tearing into the floor and throwing the man against a pillar. He rose anyway, lungs burning, vision narrowing. The final raider hesitated, looking past him at the shrine, at the weight of history pressing down. The man met his gaze and saw doubt fracture resolve. He disarmed him with a swift strike and kicked the device into a containment alcove that sealed shut with a heavy finality. Silence returned. Vesktal's channel went dead. The man leaned against the pillar, breathing hard now, the cost of restraint finally demanding its due. He looked around the damaged corridor at the scars left behind and felt no triumph. Only resolve hardening. The shrine dimmed once more, its work complete for now. The custodians emerged cautiously, awe and gratitude mingling in their expressions. The elder bowed deeply, a gesture reserved for forces beyond rank. The man inclined his head in return, already turning away. Beyond the shrine's walls, the galaxy reeled, recalibrating its understanding of borders and guardianship. Stories would spread, distorted by fear and distance, but the truth would remain anchored here. He returned to his watch, knowing the next test would come not with raiders, but with those who believed themselves righteous. The galaxy did not answer the shrine's broadcast with silence. Inquiry fleets arrived first, careful and polite, stopping well short of the perimeter as if proximity itself required permission. Then came envoys, their messages layered with reverence and calculation in equal measure. Councils convened emergency sessions. Old rivals found sudden agreement and shared unease. Something ancient had spoken, and humanity's shadow lay unmistakably across its words. The man watched it unfold from the shrine's upper gallery, eyes tracking distant ships that refused to draw closer. His shoulder ached dully now, the wound sealed but not forgotten. Pain was useful. It anchored him to the present. He had already sent his report to Earth, brief and unembellished. Incursion repelled. Archive activated. Secondary threat neutralized. Awaiting further instruction. None came. That too was expected. The custodians moved quietly through the halls, repairing ceremonial damage and resealing passages that had not been opened in centuries. The elder approached the man without fear, his posture careful but no longer burdened by dread. They will ask why you defend this place, he said. Many already are. The man considered the question. We don't, he replied. The elder tilted his head. Then why are you here? To make sure no one mistakes it for something else. Beyond the shrine's walls, the inquiry fleets grew bolder. A coalition cruiser edged closer than the rest, broadcasting a request for direct communication. Its captain spoke in measured tones, citing shared interests, preservation treaties, and mutual concern over unilateral action. The shrine, after all, lay in no one's territory. Guardianship implied authority, and authority demanded justification. The man listened, expression unchanged. He authorized a single transmission in return. No encryption. No ceremony. The feed opened to reveal him standing alone in the shrine's central hall, blade sheathed, hands visible. This site is not claimed, he said. It is watched. The captain frowned. By whom? By those willing to stand here when others cannot. The channel cut. Across the coalition cruiser's bridge, officers exchanged uneasy glances. The message had not been threatening. That unsettled them more than any show of force. Later, a smaller ship arrived without announcement, slipping into orbit with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where the shrine's blind spots lay. The man felt it immediately. The presence was familiar, disciplined, human. He descended to the outer platform as the ship docked, its hull bearing no markings beyond the muted blue of Earth's deep fleet. The ramp lowered and a woman stepped out, her movements economical, her gaze sharp. She wore the same unassuming armor, the same refusal of spectacle. You look worse than your report suggested, she said. Reports are for efficiency, he replied. Not comfort. She smiled faintly, then sobered. Command is concerned. The archive activation rippled further than anticipated. Some factions are calling it an ultimatum. It wasn't. They won't care. He glanced back at the shrine, its surfaces once more dormant, inscrutable. They never do. They walked together through the damaged corridors, the woman absorbing details with practiced attention. Rotation change? She asked eventually. Not yet. She nodded, unsurprised. Then I'll stand second watch. They reached the inner sanctum, where the containment alcove still held the neutralized device. She studied it briefly. That was desperate. Desperation makes people honest, he said. It shows what they value when consequences are immediate. She looked at him, then really looked, and saw the cost etched beneath the calm. How long do you think we can keep this up? She asked quietly. As long as it works. Outside, the coalition fleets withdrew incrementally, their questions unanswered but their curiosity sharpened. New stories began to circulate, framing the shrine not as a prize but as a threshold. Pilots altered routes. Raiders reconsidered targets. A few ambitious leaders spoke openly about testing the Watchers, about forcing clarity through confrontation. The man heard those rumors through distant channels and felt no alarm. Clarity, he knew, was often overrated. Ambiguity kept people cautious. He returned to his position as the stars wheeled slowly beyond the shrine's vast apertures. The woman took up her post opposite him, silent and ready. Together they formed a presence that required no banners. Far away, in a council chamber thick with argument, a final question hung unanswered. If humanity watched the shrine not to rule it, then what exactly were they guarding the rest of the galaxy from? The man rested his hand lightly on his blade and waited for the next to find out. The test came without ceremony. No fleets gathered. No warnings echoed across public channels. One moment the shrine rested in its familiar stillness, inquiry ships keeping their respectful distance, and the next the man felt the shift ripple through the stone beneath his feet. It was subtle, the kind of disturbance only someone who had lived inside vigilance could recognize. Not an attack. A probe. Someone was trying to look past the shrine rather than break into it. The woman sensed it as well. Their eyes met across the central hall, understanding passing without words. This was not the desperation of raiders or the arrogance of conquerors. This was calculation sharpened by patience, the sort wielded by civilizations that believed themselves mature enough to decide what others were allowed to protect. The man reached the archive interface and felt resistance where compliance usually lived. External systems were attempting to map the deeper record, peeling back layers that were never meant for extraction. He clenched his jaw, not in anger but in disappointment. The galaxy had learned fear. It had not yet learned restraint. "Authorize escalation," the woman said quietly. He hesitated for half a second. Escalation here did not mean more violence. It meant revelation, and revelation was irreversible. Once seen, it could not be unseen. "Do it," he said. The shrine responded. Light spilled through the ancient glyphs, not bright, but absolute, illuminating truths rather than surfaces. The archive unfolded itself outward again, but this time it did not focus on crimes or names. It showed patterns. Civilizations rising, expanding, consuming, collapsing under the weight of their certainty. It showed where intervention had been attempted too late, where silence had been mistaken for indifference. And threaded through it all was a quieter record, one the galaxy had overlooked until now. Humanity arriving early. Standing between. Choosing to watch instead of rule. Across distant command centers, analysts froze as the data resolved. This was not a threat. It was a mirror. Every faction saw its future reflected back, altered only by the choices it had yet to make. The probing ceased. Ships that had remained hidden revealed themselves just long enough to retreat. Channels filled with hurried reassessments, doctrines rewritten in real time. The shrine had not drawn a line in space. It had drawn one in thought. The woman exhaled slowly. "They'll call this manipulation. They can call it whatever they need to sleep," the man replied. His voice was steady, but something in him loosened, a tension he had carried since the first alarm sounded days ago. This was why he stood here. Not to win battles, but to end them before they began. The elder approached, awe tempered now by understanding. "The shrine has never spoken so clearly," he said. "Not even in legend." "It didn't speak," the man answered. "It remembered." Time passed. Not hours, but cycles measured by the slow realignment of distant stars. The injury in his shoulder healed into a tight scar, another entry in a body already mapped by sacrifice. Inquiry fleets dwindled. Trade routes normalized. The galaxy settled, not into peace but into caution, which was often the closest thing. Then came the final message. It arrived from Earth, routed through channels so mundane they almost felt disrespectful. "Rotation complete. Stand down authorized. Relief unit inbound." The woman read it first, then handed it to him. "Looks like you're finally getting replaced." He studied the words, feeling an unexpected weight press against his chest. "Replaced isn't the word," he said. "Relieved." She smiled, this time without reservation. "Same difference." The relief ship arrived days later, carrying another sentinel, younger, quieter still, eyes already learning the shrine's rhythms. The man briefed him thoroughly, passing on what could be taught and trusting instinct with the rest. When it was done, he removed his gear piece by piece, laying it out with careful respect. At the threshold, he paused and looked back at the shrine one last time. The stone was unmarked now, its silence complete again. To anyone else it would seem unchanged. He knew better. "You'll be back," the woman said softly. "Probably," he admitted. "The universe has a way of testing doors." They departed without ceremony, their ship slipping into the dark the same way it had arrived. The shrine did not react. It never did. Watching was its nature, not farewell. Far away, on a world considering its next conquest, a leader hesitated, haunted by records they could not forget. Somewhere else, a raider chose a different target. Across the galaxy, small decisions shifted, nudged by the knowledge that some thresholds were guarded not by gods, but by people willing to stand quietly in the way. And in the endless dark between stars, the shrine waited, patient as ever, confident that when the next test came, Earth's silent blade would already be there.